Good morning. Welcome to Hastings. I'm Kevin Borman. I'm the chair of the Hastings Pride in Place Board. I'm proud to have been born and bred in Hastings. In fact, my family go back over 400 years here. My nan's brother, my great-uncle, was cox of the Hastings lifeboat in 1940 and took the lifeboat to Dover for Dunkirk. My granddaughter started school here last September, the same school that all 5 of my children, my brother, my sister, me and my mum went to, where I was also chair of governors. So yes, I am local. I retired 2 years ago, having worked for over 45 years. The first 20 was on the railway, but I left when it was privatised and the experience wasn't valued. I then worked for the town I love for over 25 years, promoting regionally, nationally and internationally. After I retired, I couldn't face watching daytime television and wanted to remain active. I chair a local charity raising funds for the 2 medieval churches in Hastings Old Town, a volunteer director of the South East Communities Rail Partnership, where we improve local railway stations. I'm also a volunteer launch authority for Hastings Lifeboat, so reconnecting with my grandmother's generation. I've seen massive changes in Hastings over the last 67 years, from good times in the 1960s to hellhole on sea in the 1990s. There was then a period of great investment in the early 2000s, and we saw real improvements. But unfortunately, austerity and the cuts of the last 15 years have made things much more difficult again. I really began to fear that we were going back to the bad old days of the late 1990s. But I've always tried to be an optimist, and I can see under this government things are getting better. Local people need to feel positive, to see that change for the better is possible, and feel pride in where they live and work. Small changes can have a big impact on people's lives, and the government's Pride in Place funding for Hastings gives us the opportunity to make things better, to give local people hope for where they live and hope for the future. I am really looking forward to making our hopes and plans for the future come true, to really make things better for people here. I absolutely believe we can deliver, and we should. We owe it to the people of Hastings. And I'm delighted to introduce to speak the person who's making this possible, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Kevin. I want to begin by addressing some of the issues around the Mandelson case. I entered politics later in life. I did so after a career in the criminal justice system, including as Director of Public Prosecutions. I entered politics not for personal gain, not for status, and not to live a life detached from the reality that most people face. I entered politics because I wanted to change our country for the better, to make it fairer, safer, more secure. And I still believe that most people who serve in public life, whether as civil servants or elected politicians, do so for the same reason, because they believe in service, because they believe in duty, because they believe in the public good. But that is not why some people do it. And that is not why Mandelson did it. And that sense of duty only matters if the standards of public life are upheld. And in recent days, serious allegations and serious evidence has emerged concerning Mandelson's conduct, including his relationship with Epstein, a convicted sex offender. It had been publicly known for some time that Mandelson knew Epstein, but none of us knew the depth and the darkness of that relationship. What has come to light has raised serious questions. Information that was not known at the time of his appointment. Before he was appointed ambassador, Mandelson was asked directly about the nature of his relationship with Epstein. He was asked whether he had stayed at Epstein after his conviction. And when, later, further information came to light, he was asked whether he had accepted gifts and hospitality, about whether he had been fully transparent about the relationship. The information now available makes clear that the answers he gave were lies. He portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew. And when that became clear, and it was not true, I sacked him. Such deceit is incompatible with public service. Let me be clear, no one is above accountability. And no one, however well-connected, however experienced, however senior, should hold public office if they cannot meet the basic test of honesty. I also want to address the publication of the information Mandelson provided during the appointment process. I understand the strength of public feeling. I share the anger that people feel when powerful individuals appear to escape scrutiny. And I want to be able to release those documents as quickly as possible. I wanted to release them yesterday, in fact, and to talk about them at Prime Minister's questions. But the police have advised that releasing certain information now could risk prejudicing a future investigation or legal process. And however frustrating from my personal point of view that is, and it is, I will not take any step, however politically tempting, however popular, that risks justice for victims. Because this is not and must never become a political game. The victims of Epstein have lived with trauma that most of us can barely comprehend. And they've had to relive it again and again. They have seen accountability delayed and too often denied. To them, I want to say this. I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again. But I also want to say this. In this country, we will not look away. We will not shrug our shoulders. And we will not allow the powerful to treat justice as optional. We will pursue the truth. We will uphold the integrity of public life. And we will do everything within our power and in the interests of justice to ensure accountability is delivered. That is what the public expects. That is what the victims deserve. And it is what I will do. Now, I'm here today in Hastings for similar reasons. Because I love this country. It is the greatest country in the world. The progress and prosperity I've seen throughout my life, the journey that I've been on personally, from a working class background to this, I owe everything to this country and its values. I've spent most of my professional life serving them, not just in politics. And I believe that pride, shared by millions, is the key not only for uniting our country, but also for finding in each other the strength to create, in defiance of an increasingly volatile world, a Britain built for all. Now, you heard it from Kevin, or I think I should address you as Mr. Hastings. And I want to thank you and everyone else like you who give their heart and soul to the ground beneath their feet. I believe in that pride. I believe in that purpose. I believe in British values, in rules that protect those in need, in the freedom to live and let live, in decency and tolerance, in respect for difference under the same flag. A common good. The idea fundamental to the Labour Party that a nation is not just a collection of individuals, but rather that we're bound by values, by common endeavour, and by responsibilities that we owe one another as partners in the project of this nation. I believe in our way of doing things when it comes to integration, a British way that has always been grounded in the fairness of the two-way street, in rights and responsibilities, in contribution, the common sense that says people who come here, who work hard, contribute to our success, embrace our rules, buy into this project, they can become not just citizens, but neighbours, friends, equals, part of us. But most of all, I believe that these values make us strong, that in a world that increasingly preys on weakness, I believe Britain is stronger as a tolerant, decent, and respectful country. But we must be honest, because while I will always believe in these values, we cannot be blind to the reality that in recent years their practice has often become poor, and that when it comes to our shared responsibilities, we've taken our eye off the ball, and that our social contract is currently nowhere near strong enough to weather the storms of this world, because it's been undermined by political neglect, the scorched earth of Tory austerity, high streets, libraries, youth clubs, the places that shape a life, that bring different people together, that create the bonds of memory and pride in so many towns. They were just abandoned. Until you see now, sometimes from the very same people, a politics that has no interest in rebuilding any of that, only in exploiting the social scars. You see it in the industrialised grievance factory, in parts of social media. Miserable video after miserable video, telling you that entire cities and towns, the great communities of this country, are wastelands, no-go zones. And worse, selling the lie, defied every day by millions of people in this country, that people who look different cannot really live together. I reject that completely. And you see it in politicians, like the Reform candidate for Gorton and Denton, who look at people like Rishi Sunak, Shabana Mahmood, and presumably Marcus Rashford, Shirley Bassey, Anna Sala, and say they can't really be English or Welsh or Scottish because they are not white. An affront to British values as I see them. And I tell you, as long as I've got breath in my body, I will always fight against that politics. And on that, honestly, I never thought I would see the day when the Conservative Party would tolerate for months a man who went to Birmingham and said that the city had failed at integration because he didn't see enough white faces. That is a disgrace, and he should have been sacked months ago. But look, it's not just the right. Britain's also been let down by a mindset on the left of politics that is either too slow to defend core British values or that ducks the challenge of integration entirely, clinging to a kind of remote liberalism that is content merely to dispense transfers and targets from Whitehall, rather than nurture pride, belonging and responsibility from the ground up in our communities. You know, the Labour Party is the institution that stood with working class communities in cities like Glasgow and Liverpool, and door by door, street by street, turned a politics shaped by grievance and religious sectarianism into one of national renewal. That is our task again, because politics in this dangerous era, it's no longer about left and right, but a contest between renewal and grievance, between those who believe society is a zero-sum competition and those who believe we can unite for the higher purpose of our community, our country, our common good. This government chooses the path of unity because that is the only way we can change Britain, the only way we can take control of our future, stand up to the world and walk forward together. And mark my words, it is a vital task. Enemies of Britain are active in this country trying to destabilise us. And so a strong society is imperative, not just on its own terms, but also for national security. To put it more bluntly, any country that cannot keep its high streets alive, its bills down, and its people feeling respected will struggle to meet the test of our times. So we must strengthen our society because it's vital for the future of this country. Now, it starts with the economy. That's fundamental. If we're going to defeat the politics of grievance, we must tackle the cost of living crisis, and we must raise living standards, not just in a few cities or regions, but across the entire country. And it's not hard to understand why. If you're simply battling through the days, it's hard to look forward with hope, let alone find the strength in each other. And so, all the decisions we took at the budget, getting inflation down, freezing rail fares, freezing fuel duty, slashing the cost of childcare for working parents, supporting people with their energy bills, but also investing in every community in this country, backing a proper industrial policy, raising the national minimum wage, that is all the absolute foundation of a strong society, essential for restoring hope in Britain. Second, we need to reform the state so that it recognises contribution as the common sense basis for integration, most of all on migration. Now, I know that migration is bound up with who we are. Of course it is. It's fundamental for the stories people tell about themselves, their family, their history and relationships. And I will never denigrate the contribution migrants make to our society and our story. Quite the opposite. And yet, it seems obvious to me that failures in Britain's migration system under the Tories were so shocking that they weakened trust in politics, faith in democracy to deliver what people vote for, and now, exploited by politicians of grievance, support the idea that diverse people can ever truly come together. Now, I reject that politics with every fibre in my being. But if you're serious about bringing this country together, you cannot ignore this issue. And so, yes, our reforms on migration are about taking control of our borders, but they're also about contribution. I mean, go back to Windrush, which is such an important moment in our national story. The people who came here, they weren't victims, they weren't vulnerable. Britain didn't invite them here as an act of compassion. That is liberal vanity. No, they came here because Britain needed them, because they wanted to come. And Britain wanted them to make a contribution. And they did. They helped rebuild this country. Now, I think there's far more dignity in that story, the real story, than in this kind of fairy tale of Britain's charity. There's a mutual respect in it, a fairness grounded in contribution that I believe has always been the basis of trust in migration policy for the vast majority of people in this country. And so our reforms to migration, they will boost integration, they will restore trust, and they will help return us to a situation where the migration policy cannot be exploited by people who think that whiteness is the same thing as Britishness. And third, we need to be more vigilant in asserting British values and call out those who want to divide us, whoever they are. Now, obviously, that goes for any form of extremism, whether that is extreme right ideologies and their hatred of Muslims, or Islamist ideologies and their hatred of Britain and Jews. But it also means we've got to fight a more insidious, passive tolerance. I mean, it's not hard to support the just cause of a Palestinian state without being anti-Semitic. Millions of people do that, and I'm one of them. It is the policy of this government and this country to recognise Palestine. And yet, on the marches that supposedly support that cause, you will often see clearly racist banners, anti-Semitic hate, a fact that leaves a minority community in this country scared and intimidated. A community which, let us not forget, suffered the most recent terrorist attack on these shores. How can that be right for a country with values like ours? How can it be right to turn a blind eye to racist hatred of any kind, whether victims are Jews, Muslims, or any minority? It can't. And so, frankly, we do need to be much clearer as a society about what we expect of people and the responsibilities that come with rights. And that means much stronger powers to the Charity Commission to shut down charities that promote extremism. It means tougher regulation of homeschooling, because schools are so important for integration. And so we need a higher bar for people who want to opt out of that responsibility. And it means we need to improve across the state English language provision. Now, it's a simple argument. Everyone who comes here, who lives here, should have an opportunity to learn English, because it's essential for participation in our society. And so they should be expected to learn English. And yet, for years, we've simply not asked people to do that. That is a recipe for exclusion, and frankly, for people being vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. So we will change that, and we will stand united and together against any individual or organisation that does not want to shoulder the responsibility of British values. Fourth and finally, we've got to reverse the devastating decline in our communities. Give power, agency and control to people who want to improve their community. Now, you can see the signs over here, Pride in Place, led by you, backed by the government. That is a £5 billion programme with an extra £800 million today, investing in 284 neighbourhoods in every corner of our country, including here. Because pride is the social glue the force that holds together a community and a country. And yet, there's a paradox. This is the country where local identities, down to the village level, burn more fiercely than any other, where accents can change over a very small distance, where you get, amongst other things, a football league pyramid of 92 teams, 92 identities, 92 passions, and countless local rivalries. That's unique. We're a country of 4 nations, distinct and proud, where, as this weekend's rugby will show, tribal rivalry is part of who we are. And yet 4 nations who time and again run through the fire together, a country forged by the solidarity of working people. But this is also a country, and this is certainly for England, where the state is one of the most centralised in the world, and where all that ferocious pride is completely ignored by politics. Take a man some of you know, Bernard Stonestreet, who I think is here. Where's Bernard? Bernard, very good to see you here. 24 years of service in the Royal Marines, I believe. Tours of the Far East, the Middle East, Europe, and Northern Ireland. Now, for many of us, that may seem enough service, but not for Bernard, because Bernard works tirelessly for Sussex, Hastings, the ground beneath your feet. He's opened a centre for veterans, where they can come and get support for mental health advice, particularly from people who've been there. He's opened a veterans cafe too, and he's looking to help homeless veterans as well. Thank you, Bernard. Or what about Miranda, who got so fed up with fly tipping and litter in Edinburgh that she started picking it up herself? And then, when people started saying they wanted to help, she set up litter busters. Now their community is cleaner, and that may not sound like a lot, but it makes a huge difference. It changes how you feel about your town, your future, even your country, when you look out the window and see that people care. Now, ask yourself this question. Wouldn't politics be better if we truly backed that kind of pride? And this is what the Tory Levelling Up scheme never really understood. Yes, people want investment, and this government will back them. We're rebuilding our public services, opening new nurseries, breakfast clubs, health centres, investing in community infrastructure. But investment is a means and not an end. It's about power as well as pounds and pence, a way for communities in an insecure world to take control of their own fate. So let's regenerate the town centre in Bexhill. Let's bring a dance and arts centre to the Grimsby Docks. Invest in the youth centre in Rhyl. Run bingo nights in Coleraine. Clean up Coke Bridge. Create better sports facilities right here in Hastings. But most of all, let's do it together. Because I've always believed that people with skin in the game make better decisions about their community and their future. And so that is what we will do. A programme that backs people to change what matters to them. The very definition of a two-way street. A partnership of pride. That is how the state should work. And with my government, it will. Because I tell you, if you want to know where hope lives in Britain, it's in our communities. That is where people come together. It is where you will find our common good. And that is where we will discover once again the courage in each other. Communities backed by the state, fired up by pride, taking responsibility for the renewal of this great nation. So, whatever your politics, if you're proud of your community, join us. Because this is a cause that will give you control over your future, strengthen us on the world stage, create a Britain truly built for all, and show, in defiance of the politics of grievance, that we can walk forward together. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm now going to take a number of questions from the media. Can I start with Chris from the BBC? Chris.
Thank you. Chris